Hey everyone, welcome back to the second lecture of Chapter 4, and today we are talking about passive voice and also about how to conjugate a verb in the passive voice. Okay, but first we need to talk about what a voice is. Alright, in Latin and in English there are two voices. There is the active voice and the passive voice. So first let's demonstrate what active voice means. Okay, active voice means that the subject is performing the action of a verb. And so let me give you a sentence with an active voice verb. So the poet tells the story. Okay. This sentence is active, it's active voice, the verb is active voice, because the poet is doing the action, he's telling the story. A passive voice verb and a passive sentence means that the subject is being acted upon by the verb. So if I took the active sentence, the poet tells the story, and I were to make that passive, the passive version of this sentence is the story is being told by the poet. Okay, so in sentence one, it's active because the poet, who's the subject, is doing the action, he's telling. In the second sentence, the verb is passive because the subject, the story, is being acted upon. It's being told by the poet. Let's give one more example of active and passive voice. Maybe something a little more concrete. So, Marcus kicks his brother. Marcus is very mean to his brother. So he kicks his brother. Marcus is actively doing the kicking. He's like, kicked you, brother. Haha. And then he smiled about it. Okay, so Marcus kicks his brother. This sentence is active. Okay, it's active. The verb is active. Therefore, the sentence is active. To make this passive, we would say the brother or his brother is kicked by Marcus. So in the passive sentence, the action is being done to the brother. Okay, so think of passive, a passive person, or if someone calls you passive, it means that you just kind of sit there and you take it, right? And you don't resist. And so in this sentence, the brother is being kicked. He's being acted upon by someone else. In this case, his very mean brother, Marcus. Marcus is very mean. Okay, so that's the difference between an active sentence and a passive sentence, between an active verb and a passive verb. Well, what does this mean in Latin? Well, in Latin, in order to conjugate a verb in the passive, you have to use special passive endings. So when we first learned about verbs, we learned that verbs have person, like first, second, and third, and of course they have number, singular, and plural. And we learned the endings OST, must, sent. Well, those are active endings. Passive voice has its own set of endings, and those endings are ris, ter, mer, mini, enter. So ris, ter, mer, mini, enter. And these endings mean the same thing that essentially the active endings mean in terms of how you translate the pronoun. So R is I, it's first person singular. Ris is you. Ter is he, she, or it. Mer is we, many is you all, or y'all, or yins, for those of you who live in Western Pennsylvania. And enter is they. Okay, so the person and the number, the translations don't change. The endings do. So arist, her, mer, many, enter, and these are the passive endings. Okay, so now we're going to conjugate a verb in the passive. So I'm going to set up another chart with first, second, and third, and singular and plural at the top. And the verb that we're going to use as our sample verb is the verb woko. Woko means to call. So it's woko, wokare. Okay, so in order to conjugate in a verb in the passive, just like the active, my first principal part goes here. And then I have to take away the re from the infinitive to get the stem. And so I'm going to write out the stem of the verb, which is woka. Okay, and then once I have my stem, I'm going to add my passive endings. So r, ris, ter, mer, mini, enter. Okay, and it works the same way for a second conjugation too. So you take the first principal part of the verb and put it in the first person singular and add r, and then you take the stem of the verb, cross off the re from the infinitive, and then add your endings. Ris, ter, mer, mini, enter. Now, there is a difference in the translation. Woko by itself, whoops, ignore that. Woko would be I call, but wokor is I am called. It's passive. It's being done to me. Okay, wokaris, you are called. Or you could say you are being called. That being part is optional. Wokater, he, she, or it is called. Wokamer, we are called. Okay, wokamini, you all are called. And then wokanter, they are called. Okay, and that is how you conjugate and translate a verb in the passive. Real quick, let's do an example of a second conjugation one. So really quickly, we'll set up first, second, and third again, and singular and plural. And for second conjugation, this time, let's use moneo. So moneo, monere, of course means to warn. Okay, we only need the first two principal parts, so I won't list out all four. Taking off the re, and remember that my first principal part goes here, so moneo. Okay, and then I'm going to write my stem. Okay. And then my endings. Okay, so mone or, shouldn't be no macron here. Get that out of here. Mone ris, mone ter, monemer, monemini, monenter. Right, and if let's just translate the first person singular. This would be I am warned. Alright, and thanks for tuning in, and looking forward to seeing you next time.